Most men believe that intimacy ends the moment physical release occurs. They close that chapter in their mind, move on, and never fully consider what is still unfolding in the moments and hours that follow. And this is one of the most significant missed opportunities in the entire landscape of male intimacy. Because what happens after in the emotional, neurological, and relational space that opens up in the aftermath of that moment is where the deepest and most lasting dimensions of connection are either built or quietly dismantled. And most men will never understand this until someone explains it to them clearly and honestly. Today, I am going to do exactly that. I am Dr. Julia Rhodes, a men's sex therapist with over a decade of experience working with different couples and helping men regain their sexual health and strength back. In my clinical work with couples, one of the patterns I see most consistently is a significant gap between what men understand about the emotional and psychological experience of intimacy for themselves and their partners, and what is actually happening in both people's minds and nervous systems during and after the most vulnerable moments of sexual connection. Men often approach intimacy with considerable attention to the physical dimensions of the experience, which is understandable and not without value, but the emotional and psychological dimensions, the ones that actually determine how deeply the experience registers, how long it resonates, and how much it strengthens or erodes the bond between two people, receive far less conscious attention. What I want to give you today is a clear, clinically grounded understanding of 6 dimensions of what happens emotionally and psychologically in the aftermath of ejaculation during intimacy with a partner. Understanding these dimensions will not just make you a more knowledgeable person. It will, if you apply what I am sharing, make you a genuinely better and more attentive partner. The kind of partner whose presence in intimate moments creates experiences that are remembered, cherished, and that build connection in ways that accumulate and deepen over time. Before we get into the content, please subscribe to this channel right now if you have not already and turn on your notifications. Every week, I publish clinically informed content about men's sexual and relational health that is designed to be genuinely useful in your real life and your real relationships. Share this video with a man in your life who takes his intimate relationships seriously and wants to understand them more deeply. And now, let us get into it. Dimension 1, the emotional aftermath. Why the physical end is not the emotional end. The moment of ejaculation is, from a physical standpoint, a kind of resolution. The muscular tension that has been building through arousal releases. The cardiovascular engagement that accompanies sexual excitement begins to ease. The body starts its transition toward the calm, settled state of post-orgasmic relaxation. But this physical resolution does not mean that the emotional and psychological experience of intimacy is over. In many ways, it is only just opening. And what happens in the emotional space of the minutes and hours following that physical resolution determines to a very significant degree how the entire encounter is encoded in memory by both partners, what the experience ultimately means, how much closer or how much more distant both people feel as a result of what just happened between them. Here is why. At the exact moment of release, something profound and biologically documented happens to the emotional state of both partners. The body has just moved through a state of maximal vulnerability. Sexual intimacy requires each person to be entirely without their usual social amore, without the managed presentation that governs most human interaction. The moment of orgasm in particular represents a complete involuntary letting go of control, a moment of absolute physiological openness that the nervous system registers as an act of profound trust. The mind processes this openness. This having been fully seen and fully present in a moment of total vulnerability as something meaningful, something that demands to be honored rather than immediately set aside. And what happens in the emotional space immediately following determines whether that moment of vulnerability is confirmed as safe and deeply connecting, or whether it closes down into something guarded and private. Small gestures in this window carry disproportionate emotional weight. A calm and present stillness, a hand resting gently, a few unhurried warm words, eye contact that communicates genuine care and attentiveness. These gestures tell the nervous system of your partner and your own nervous system that the vulnerability just shared was safe, that it was witnessed, that it mattered. The mind registers this as the kind of safety that it will actively seek to return to, and the absence of these gestures, the rolling over, the immediately reaching for a phone, the abrupt shift to some other topic or activity, communicates something equally powerful and considerably more damaging. That the vulnerability was not witnessed, that the closeness was temporary and transactional, and that the emotional door that opened in that moment is now closed. Understanding this is the first and most foundational step toward transforming the quality of your intimate connection. The act does not end at the physical resolution. It continues for as long as the emotional space that was created remains open and inhabited. Dimension 2, the psychological impact, how the brain encodes intimate experience. The psychological impact of intimacy is not confined to what happens consciously. Much of the most significant processing occurs at a level below conscious awareness in the neurological systems responsible for memory formation, emotional association, and the regulation of attachment and bonding. When the brain moves through the neurochemical cascade of sexual arousal and orgasm, it is not merely processing a pleasurable physical experience. It is actively forming memories, creating emotional associations, and encoding relational information that will influence how both partners experience each other and interpret future interactions. The brain is, in the most literal neurological sense, learning from what is happening in this moment and building its model of the relationship accordingly. A key mechanism in this process is the way the brain links the emotional state present during an experience with the memory of that experience. Neuroscientists describe this as state-dependent memory encoding. When a memory is formed in a particular emotional state, the qualities of that emotional state become part of the memory itself. The memory carries the feeling of safety or the feeling of distance, the feeling of being fully present and received, or the feeling of having been physically intimate with someone who was not really there. This is why the same physical act can create experiences that feel entirely different depending on the emotional and relational context in which it occurs. Two encounters that are physically identical can produce one memory encoded with warmth, safety, and deepening connection, and another encoded with a subtle but lasting sense of emotional absence. And these encoded memories accumulate. They shape the texture of the relationship over time. They determine how safe intimacy feels, how available both partners are to genuine vulnerability in future encounters, how much the physical closeness between two people either nourishes or depletes the emotional bond that holds them together. The practical implication of this is significant and actionable. You have the ability to consciously influence how intimate experiences are encoded in both your own memory and your partner's memory. Not by performing, not by following a script, but by being genuinely and attentively present in the emotional aftermath of physical intimacy. By choosing presence over distraction, connection over withdrawal, attentiveness over autopilot. Consider what it means when a couple has shared hundreds of intimate encounters over the course of years or decades together, and the majority of those encounters have been followed by a consistent pattern of emotional disengagement, however subtle. The subconscious accumulation of those encodings is not neutral. It is shaping both partners' unconscious model of what intimacy in this relationship means and how it feels. It is teaching both nervous systems what to expect and, over time, what to guard against. The gradual closing down of genuine emotional availability that many couples experience as their relationships mature is not solely the product of familiarity or reduced novelty. It is frequently the product of exactly this accumulated pattern of post-intimacy disconnection, repeated enough times that the nervous system has quietly learned that the vulnerability of intimacy in this relationship is not fully met with presence and care. Dimension 3. Trust and vulnerability. The invisible architecture of intimacy. Trust and vulnerability are not peripheral features of intimate experience. They are its invisible architecture. They are the structure within which everything else either stands or collapses. Sexual intimacy requires a degree of exposure that is unlike almost any other human experience. To be physically naked with another person, to be fully present in a moment of involuntary, uncontrolled physical response, to allow someone to witness you in the most unguarded state you ever inhabit is one of the most profound acts of trust that human beings are capable of. And this is true even in long-term established relationships, where physical intimacy has occurred many hundreds or thousands of times. Each encounter carries within it the same fundamental act of trust, and each one either confirms or erodes the safety of that trust. Vulnerability in this context is not a sign of weakness in the relationship, it is a sign of its strength. A person who allows themselves to be genuinely vulnerable in intimate moments is demonstrating that the bond between them and their partner is strong enough, safe enough, and trustworthy enough to hold that exposure without judgment or consequence. And the way that vulnerability is received and responded to either validates and deepens that trust or quietly teaches the nervous system that vulnerability in this relationship is not entirely safe and should be managed more carefully in future. The attention and presence you bring to your partner in intimate moments, and particularly in the aftermath of those moments, is the primary language through which you communicate the safety of the trust she has placed in you. The quality of your presence, your stillness, your attentiveness, and your genuine care for how she is feeling in those moments all communicate something to her nervous system that goes far deeper than words. They tell her body and her subconscious, you are safe here. What you just shared was received. What you just allowed yourself to be was seen and honored. When trust is consistently honored in this way over the course of an intimate relationship, what develops is a quality of openness and genuine availability in your partner that cannot be manufactured or demanded. It grows organically from the cumulative experience of having been consistently safe. And conversely, when trust is consistently not honored, when vulnerability is met with inattention, distraction, or withdrawal, what develops over time is a gradual but inexorable closing down of genuine availability. The body remembers, the nervous system learns, and intimacy that was once open and fully inhabited becomes increasingly managed and self-protective. This closing down often happens so gradually that neither partner can identify when or why it began. The woman begins to participate in physical intimacy less fully to hold something back that she cannot quite name, to be present in body while being slightly absent in emotional investment. The man often experiences this as a loss of connection or chemistry that he does not understand and may attribute to many external factors when the cause is closer and more correctable than he realizes. The corrective is not dramatic. It does not require reinvention of the relationship or a conversation that resolves years of accumulated distance in a single evening. It requires a consistent shift in post-intimacy presence, maintained over enough time that the nervous system of both partners begins to register a new pattern and responds accordingly. Dimension 4, the post-release energy shift and why what you do in this window matters so much. The physiological transition that occurs immediately following ejaculation is one of the most significant shifts in the body's autonomic state that a man regularly experiences. In the period of sexual arousal and physical engagement, the sympathetic nervous system, the system associated with alertness, engagement, and physical activation, is dominant. Heart rate is elevated, blood pressure is higher, muscular tension is maintained. The entire system is oriented toward engagement and physical intensity. In the period following orgasm, this reverses. The parasympathetic nervous system, the system associated with rest, recovery, and calm, asserts dominance. Heart rate slows. Breathing deepens and steadies. Muscular tension releases. Prolactin surges, creating the characteristic feelings of relaxation and satiation that most men recognize from the post-orgasmic state. Oxytocin, which has been elevated throughout the arousal phase, continues to influence emotional processing in the aftermath. This shift in autonomic state is not merely physical. It creates a particular quality of psychological openness and emotional permeability that is unlike the ordinary waking state. The defenses that ordinarily govern most human interaction, the managed self-presentation, the emotional cautiousness, the habitual social performance are significantly lowered. Both partners in this state are more emotionally available, more emotionally sensitive, and more capable of genuine connection than they are in most other moments of their shared life. This is the window. This is the specific neurological and emotional opening in which the depth of connection between two people can be most powerfully shaped and reinforced. The conversation that happens in this window, or the silence that is shared in this window, lands differently than it would at any other time of day. The touch that is offered or withheld in this window registers more deeply than it would in most other contexts. The quality of presence or absence in this window communicates something about the relationship and its safety that will be processed and remembered at a deep neurological level. The men who understand this and who make a deliberate, attentive choice to remain present in this window, who resist the pull of the phone, the television, the immediate return to practical matters, who choose instead to stay in the physical and emotional space with their partner for even a few unhurried minutes, are doing something that has a measurable and lasting effect on the quality of intimacy in their relationships. They are telling their partner's nervous system repeatedly and consistently that what just happened between them was real, was valued, and is still continuing. Dimension 5, subconscious bonding, the neurochemistry of lasting attachment. The bonding that occurs during and after intimate sexual experience is not merely metaphorical or poetic. It is a documented neurochemical process with a specific biological mechanism, and understanding it changes how you understand what is actually at stake in the quality of your post-intimacy presence. Oxytocin, which is sometimes called the bonding hormone or the trust hormone, is released in significant quantities during sexual arousal, orgasm, and the post-orgasmic period in both men and women. Oxytocin's primary function in the context of intimate pair bonding is to create and reinforce neurological associations between a specific person and feelings of safety, comfort, warmth, and emotional security. Every release of oxytocin in the context of intimacy with your partner is, in a very literal neurological sense, a vote being cast by your brain in favor of the emotional and relational significance of this person. But here is what most people do not understand about how this mechanism works. The oxytocin released during and after intimacy does not operate in isolation. It operates in the context of the full emotional environment of the experience. It tags the emotional state present during its release as safe and worth returning to. If the emotional environment of the post-intimacy window is one of warmth, presence, and genuine attentiveness, the oxytocin release reinforces those qualities as things the nervous system associates with this person and this relationship. The subconscious learns being with this person in this kind of openness feels like this, and it seeks to return to that feeling. If the emotional environment of the post-intimacy window is one of disconnection, distraction, or absence, the oxytocin release still occurs, but the emotional context it is tagging is different. And over time, the accumulation of these experiences, regardless of the physical quality of the intimacy itself, shapes the subconscious model of the relationship in ways that are profoundly consequential for the long-term quality of the bond. And over time, the accumulation of these experiences, regardless of the physical quality of the intimacy itself, shapes the subconscious model of the relationship in ways that are profoundly consequential for the long-term quality of the bond. Your partner's subconscious bonding to you is being actively shaped by your post-intimacy behavior every single time. This is not a small thing. It is the primary mechanism through which emotional intimacy either deepens or erodes over the course of a relationship. I want to add something here that is rarely discussed, but that I consider clinically significant. The oxytocin bonding mechanism is not symmetrical between men and women in the typical intimate encounter. Research consistently indicates that women tend to experience stronger and more sustained oxytocin-mediated bonding responses following sexual intimacy than men do. What this means practically is that in the post-intimacy window, your partner is on average neurochemically more primed for bonding, more emotionally open, and more sensitive to the quality of your presence and attentiveness than you may be. Her nervous system is at this moment doing something that is biologically significant for her sense of safety and attachment in the relationship. Meeting that moment with genuine presence and care is not merely a kind thing to do. It is a physiologically informed response to what is actually happening in her body and her brain. Dimension 6, nonverbal communication. The language your partner reads most fluently. The final dimension I want to address is the one that is perhaps most practically accessible and immediately actionable. Nonverbal communication in the aftermath of intimacy is not a supplement to what you communicate with words. For most people, it is the primary and most trusted channel of communication in this context because the nervous system has learned through long experience that what people say and what they nonverbally communicate are sometimes different, and that the nonverbal channel is the harder one to consciously manage and therefore the more reliable one to trust. Your partner, like virtually every other person, reads your nonverbal signals in intimate moments with considerable accuracy and interprets them at a level that is often below conscious awareness. The quality of your stillness or your restlessness after intimacy communicates whether you are genuinely present or anxious to move on. The quality of your touch, whether it is warm and unhurried or perfunctory and already withdrawing, communicates the degree to which you are still invested in the connection. The direction of your attention, whether it remains on her or shifts elsewhere, communicates something about how she is valued in this moment. These signals are not processed by her conscious mind as individual data points and evaluated rationally. They are processed by her nervous system, holistically producing an emotional impression that is either affirming and connecting or distancing and deflating. And that impression formed in the post-int intimacy window when her emotional sensitivity is at its highest and her defenses are at their lowest, carries a weight and a lasting resonance that is disproportionate to the brevity of the moments in which it forms. The practical application here requires neither performance nor expertise. It requires only presence, staying physically close rather than immediately creating distance, allowing touch to linger rather than withdrawing immediately, making gentle eye contact that communicates genuine warmth rather than already being elsewhere in your thoughts. Speaking if you speak with the unhurried calm of someone who is still fully in the moment rather than already oriented toward what comes next. And perhaps, most importantly, putting the phone down, leaving the television off, and allowing the two of you to simply exist together in the quiet of what just happened without immediately filling that space with distraction. That particular choice of staying rather than escaping, of remaining in the moment rather than moving through it and past it, is one of the most powerful nonverbal communications a man can make in an intimate relationship. It says without a single word, "This matters to me. You matter to me, and I am still here." Real intimacy is never only the physical encounter. It is everything that surrounds and follows that encounter, from the first moments of approach to the last moments of the shared stillness that follows. The quality of your presence in those moments, particularly the ones that come after, is the invisible language in which the true depth and health of your intimate relationship is continuously being written. Every encounter is an opportunity to write something that deepens and strengthens. The men who understand this and who bring genuine, attentive, unhurried presence to those moments consistently over time are the men whose partners feel most profoundly seen, most thoroughly connected, and most genuinely loved in the fullest sense of that word. I am Dr. Julia Rodas, a men's sex therapist with over a decade of experience working with different couples and helping men regain their sexual health and strength back. If today's video gave you a genuinely new and more complete way of understanding what is happening in your most intimate moments and how to show up more fully and more meaningfully in them, please do 3 things right now. Hit the like button because it helps more men find this content at exactly the moment they need it. Leave a comment below and tell me which of these 6 dimensions surprised you most or resonated most deeply, because I read every comment and your responses shape what I create for this community every single week. And please subscribe with notifications on if you have not already, because every week I am here with the honest, evidence-based, clinically grounded conversations about men's sexual and relational health that you deserve to be having. I will see you in the next